Procreate is an app I've been using for quite some time now. Way before the iPad Pro and Apple Pencil, I was using Wacom Bluetooth Styli on my iPad Mini 2 and iPad Retina. It was not the best experience at the time, but things have come a long way since then, and Procreate has become a very versatile drawing platform, one of the best on iOS. Procreate is one of, if not the first drawing apps developed from the ground up exclusively for iOS with no desktop counterpart. It's always had noticeably great touch gestures, as well as a design language that is intuitive and takes advantage of the iPad's strong suits. But as the iPad starts to creep closer to becoming an actual computer, I wonder if it's still good enough just to be a great iPad app. I could recognize the strong suits of the iPad in Procreate. It was and still is my go-to setup for sketching. But when it came to complicated work, the limitations of iOS and Procreate showed, and I would often switch back to my Cintiq. At times I was able to push through the limitations of Procreate and the iPad and make some really great work, but it would still take me longer than it would on any traditional computer. I was happy though, because well, you can't do this with a traditional computer, can you? The combination of iPad and Procreate was in a lot of ways the thing that I'd always wanted. The ability to work anywhere with few limitations, allowing me to focus on the artwork in front of me. But fast forward a few years and desktop-grade software like clipstudio are not only available on the iPad, but run better than they do on a lot of desktops. I would love for Procreate to be the one app I go to do everything. It is one of the most inviting, friendly apps out there. It's the only app I can go from having an idea to sketching in about 5 seconds. But there are several workflow breaking speed bumps I encounter throughout the drawing process that tend to slow me down and force my hand to move to another app. For my color work, I often use more than 50 layers on an A4 size file. Procreate has a limitation based on the canvas size. I understand this is most likely a trade-off to keep Procreate smooth and stable while recording in the background. It inevitably leads to me reaching the layer limit and getting me out of the flow of my work. I either have to delete sketch layers, combine line work layers, or double up on my colors, which can be confusing at times. Even then, I use quite a few layers for detailed coloring as well as adding finishing touches. So often the 25 or so layer limit is not enough for my work. Other apps like Art Studio Pro do give you access to more layers while still recording in the background, but in my experience, it doesn't necessarily have the same stability as Procreate does. I understand that there are trade-offs for a smoother, more stable experience, and it still works great for drawing. One thing that doesn't work so great for drawing right now is keyboard shortcuts in Procreate, or rather the lack of customization in keyboard shortcuts. You see, when Procreate added keyboard support, I was really excited. Keyboards are very efficient and let you switch and modify tools without breaking your flow. There's a pretty standard set of commands based on Photoshop's shortcuts that are used on a wide variety of apps, including clipstudio. Even if apps deviate from the Photoshop standard, they often allow you to customize your shortcuts, tools, settings, and commands. This ability to customize my tools and shortcuts on a variety of apps has let me use the same shortcuts for 10 years of digital drawing. When connecting a keyboard to Procreate, not all of the tools are set to standards, and unfortunately at the moment, there's no way to customize your keyboard shortcuts. I wish I could use this controller or the tap strap to enhance my workflow in Procreate. In apps like Clipstudio and Art Studio, I'm able to go into the settings and enter my own keyboard shortcuts to take full advantage of these accessories. I've made videos of these accessories in the past, and I'll link to them below. They've really helped my workflow, especially on iPad. They do work on PCs, and I'm going to make another video separately about how I use these with a variety of different drawing apps, so stay tuned for that. Even this little keyboard from Razer would add a ton of functionality to Procreate if I could only customize the shortcuts. Keyboards and digital art go hand in hand for me. They're a great way to get the most out of whatever software you are using. But due to the core design of Procreate, I'm not sure if my workflow would benefit from any of these accessories, even with the ability to customize shortcuts. On Procreate, with a keyboard connected, picking a different brush than the one you are currently using requires you to still navigate the touch-based menus. This doesn't improve efficiency, as keyboards tend to do with other applications. So it'd be nice to have a robust customization system in which you could assign certain brushes to certain keys. In Paint Tool SI, I have assigned almost every letter to a different command or brush, and rarely have to navigate the menus. Once you memorize the keyboard shortcuts, it's a great time saver and keeps you working smoothly. I find that without a keyboard though, Procreate still lacks a lot of customization beyond just the brushes. Procreate offers a nice quick menu with 6 customizable shortcuts, but I feel that the ability to customize the top UI would really lead to a lot more efficiency for many artists. You see, Procreate has a toggle between left and right-handed interfaces, but this only determines the side your brush setting menu will appear on. It would be nice if the top menu could be flipped as well. I'm right-handed, so instead of having selection and transform tools on the left-hand side, it would be great to access different things like my brushes, my colors, as well as my layers with my non-dominant hand, allowing me to stay in a state of flow, instead of stopping in the middle of a drawing to access these pretty commonly used tools. I feel like this level of customization would allow me to work smoother even without a keyboard. I feel like my last point might be a little bit nitpicky, But another aspect of the iPad becoming more like a traditional computer was the introduction of a more robust file system, as well as the Files app. clipstudio takes full advantage of this, with all files now being stored in the Files app, which lets you batch export as well as back up things really easily. This is still something a lot of apps aren't taking advantage of, but I can see a world where artists can create on one file on their iPads and use it across a variety of apps. Right now, exporting and importing between apps is not necessarily a difficult process, but it often leads to duplicate files. Every app has its limitations, so I understand that it might be difficult to use one file across many different apps on iOS, but the use of one file across a variety of different programs has been in the workflow of professionals for many years now. In a lot of ways, the things I've said about my workflow issues with Procreate do apply to a variety of different apps on iOS, not just drawing apps. A lot of it is based on the way that we interact with iPads, but I do believe this is beginning to change, and so I do look forward to the way that apps are going to work in the future as the iPad starts to creep closer to becoming a computer, with keyboards being kind of front and center now. I think the best thing for a lot of creators is to have a lot of options. It would be great to have that mobile drawing experience, but also be able to sit down and use a keyboard to really do some intense work when it's necessary. There's still things that I think could be improved with Procreate, like the fact that sliders are still used in the UI rather than being able to select an exact brush size, but these are all just little speed bumps, not necessarily a wall that inhibits me from drawing, and I think it's one of the best apps for drawing, and definitely hands down the best value for money. Without a subscription fee, the team at Savage Interactive have added stuff like animation, which is just amazing. For a very, very cheap price, you get a lot of value for what you pay for. I just wanted to provide a little bit of a different perspective and hopefully allow you to consider the tools that you use, maybe think about them a little bit more critically. I still love to use Procreate for sketching, and I would love to be able to use it for a little bit more of my work. But right now at the moment, when it comes to commissions and work that is a little bit more intense, I tend to go to different apps, including clipstudio or Paint Tool Sci, which is one of my favorite apps. Those are apps I've used for longer than I've used Procreate, and so I do have quite a lot to say about them, and I hope you'll stick around to see that. I'm tsukepen, and I'll be back with new videos very soon. Thanks.